لا إله إلا الله ولا نعبد إلا إياه مخلصين له الدين ولو كره الكافرون. لا إله إلا الله وحده صدق وعده ونصر عبده أعز جنده وهزم الأحزاب وحده لا شيء قبله ولا شيء بعده. لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر لا الحمد. الأمان الأمان يا حضرة الأستاذ يا حبيب شيخنا ذو الحق والمدد. أمان أمان يا سلطان الأولياء خاتم يا شيخنا عبد الله الفارس داخل مددك يا من عبد الله الداخل. يا سيدي افتح حطتك فينا يا سيدي. Open your station seal the public gunshot. غوثا ومدا يا رسول الله يا حبيبنا يا حبيب الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. We are saying توكلت على Allah, depending on Allah Almighty, depending on you ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to teach us, to dress us by spiritual knowledge, by divine knowledge, by realities, secrets from your house, through your channels, sealed of awliya, Mawlana Abdullah al-Faiz Daghstani and Sheikh Muhammad Nazir Haqqan, Sahib al-Zaman. We are weak servant to you, Allah Almighty. We are so weak, we have nothing in our hand. We are only waiting what you will open in our hearts, what will come from your divinely, heavenly stations. We will be very happy and very thankful that our Allah Almighty, our God, is looking at us, supporting us, protecting us, dressing us by things which never given to anyone whom they are behind all encyclopedias, all kind of knowledges, all kind of spiritualities, all of them as if they are in kindergarten in front the knowledge of seals of Awliya, Grand Sheikh Mawlana Sheikh Abdullah Daghstani, Mawlana Sheikh Nazir al-Haqqan, which given to them from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Ali radwanullah alayhi, whom they are under the teaching, divinely teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with the divinely godly tongue of Allah Almighty, translating the divinely pre-eternal forever revelation of Allah Almighty to the heart of His, to all whom they are in need and seeing themselves in need to be dressed by such spiritual secrets and spiritual lights and knowledge, because the one who is seeing himself that he is satisfied by what he has from knowledge, he totally is an ignorant one whom he is dressing proudness from Satan, and he will be down from the eyes of Allah Almighty and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Always be humble enough to see yourself in need for every drop of divinely knowledge which is coming from the divinely heavenly stations. At the earth, always it is in need for the rain, for the drops of water coming from the clouds as rain to be surviving. Like this, our hearts, they are in need for this spiritual rain, water of life, which comes from Allah Almighty to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from Rasulullah to Siddiq, Sayyidina Ali, Radwanullah alayhi, from them to all awliyaullah, to seals of awliya and to Sultan of awliya. May Allah dress us by good respect and good audience to them, to listen well, to hear well, to listen well, and the one who listens, try to practice what he is listening and hearing, to do by it, so that he will get benefit, otherwise no benefit. because the divinely dinner table of Allah Almighty, the divinely table of spiritual realities and secrets, food, divinely heavenly food, is not similar to that which is given as a dinner table or food table on this earth. Here we have plenty of the best kinds of food and fruits and all kinds of the high luxurious kind of food and invitations and all benefiting your physical body so little, and all the other you are spending them waste coming from your body, no benefit from them. And for this, what you ever taking from the materialistic food of this life, all it goes as dust and waste, never benefiting, except you have reflecting on your body more and more burdens, more and more to be questioned in day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, more and more to be dressed by sickness, more and more to be dressed by punishment from Allah Almighty. While the divinely food, the divine realities, secrets, this eternal food which is dressed to your soul, to your spirituality, to your reality, this will be going forever with you and will be like a tree giving fruits and growing in prosperity in your body, to be dressing you by blessing and mercies from Allah Almighty, from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, from awliya, to lead you to the highest heavenly stations which no one was able to ascend to these heavenly stations except the chosen one by Allah Almighty and the most chosen one, beloved Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Allah Almighty ascending him to the highest rank which no one yet created to reach that. People, they are wasting their time in movies, on backbiting, on nonsenses, on useless talks and meetings, coffee houses, following actors or actress, following this or that, neglecting Allah Almighty, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and all their teaching. No one anymore respecting awliyaullah. No more anyone is interested in spiritualities and realities. All they are interested in this physical, materialistic food which only giving you heaviness and burdens and make your body to be down and down from the reflection of all whom they are preparing or cooking, or the money of it. It is a halal money or a haram money. It is a halal food or a haram food. All you are going to be questioned for it. While the spiritual food, never you will be questioned for it. It will be a food which make you to be ascending, make you to be progressing, to make you always under the hand of Allah Almighty, under the hand of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, under these powers, godly powers, Rasulullah powers, Prophets powers, Ahlul Bayt, Sahaba, Awliya powers, Seed of Awliya powers, Sahibul Zaman powers, Sultan al-Awliya powers, under their powers, and these powers will lead you to be like a minaret, to be like a pillar, a minaret, giving light to the heart of everyone, and everyone looking at your face, at you. These lights will be reflecting to his heart, that everyone, he will be praising Allah Almighty when looking to your face, praising and glorifying Allah Almighty, praising Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And by this humbleness and politeness and lights reflecting from you, from this spiritual food, you will see, even you don't talk, only by reflecting these lights from your eyes, from your face, from your heart, reflecting this love to Allah Almighty, to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to Ahlul Bayt, to Sahaba, to Awliyaullah, reflecting your love to all creation of Allah Almighty, even to animals, to plants. How about children of Adam alayhi salam? How about humankind? How much you must respect and love them. How much you must be humble with them. How much you show humbleness. How much you must show good respect to the divine government of Allah Almighty. For ordinary physical governments, you will be well dressing yourself and in good, handsome way wants to meet them. How about you when you are invited to meet Allah Almighty, invited to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to meet Awliyaullah? How you must be much more perfecting yourself and well dressing by all means of good behavior and good manners and good humbleness and politeness, so that you will be welcomed by them. Because Allah Almighty is inviting us in every moment. Wallahu yad'u ila dar as-salam. It is holy ayat in the Holy Quran that Allah Almighty inviting in every second to second, always His voice from pre-eternal forever going on inviting, "O my people, O my creation, all you are welcome to Dar es-Salam. Come to Dar es-Salam. Come to my divine presence. Come to the beloved Prophet to me, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Come to my lovers, to Awliyaullah, to my friends, to prophets. Come, invited, please come." Allah Almighty with all His greatness and almightiness, and saying, "Please come, you are most welcome, but come, accept this invitation." And the people, instead, they are accepting the invitation of shaitan, of devils, of Satan, of bad ones, and following them instead to follow Allah Almighty, instead to accept the invitation of Allah Almighty and to be taking as much as they can, feeding themselves from the spiritual and secrets and realities of the divinely godly food from Allah Almighty, and the divinely godly food from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from Awliyaullah, to be then ones whom representing Khalif for Allah Almighty and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, instead to be Khalif of shaitan, of devils, of statues, of godless teaching only for famosity, or to make as much as they can from the money of this life, which is going to be ending one day. All this universes is going to be ending one day. before the day of judgment, they are going to be going to fana, to be no more existing, and only is going to remain the face of Allah Almighty, of our God, our Lord. He is going to remain, and all they are going to be finished. And still we are making our best to be busy with this things which is going to be finished and no more existing, and neglecting the one who is going to remain, and the one who is dressing us by life and by love and by whatever we need in this life and in the other life. What our soul need, what our realities need, what our spiritualities need, we are neglecting, we are not even looking at, but only we are looking how to please our desires, our egos, ourselves, our devils, our satanic world, our whom we love from this world, especially man running after woman, and woman running after man, and no one running after Allah Almighty or Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam or awliya. In time of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, Grand Sheikh said at Maulana, there was a neighbor for Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, and he was a believer, good mu'min, and he was telling his prophet Sayyidina Musa, "O Prophet Musa alayhi salam, when you go to the mountain of Sinai to talk with Allah Almighty, please ask Allah Almighty to bless me by iman, by faith, by strong faith. I don't have faith." Sayyidina Musa was so surprised, and he was telling him, "You are a good believer, you are a good mu'min. Why you are saying like you don't accept Allah Almighty?" "I accept, of course I accept Allah Almighty." You accept Musa alayhi salam as a Rasul and Prophet to Allah?" "Of course I accept you, O my beloved Prophet and Rasul." "You accept the Islam, our religion?" "Yes, I accept, even though I am feeling I don't have faith, I don't have iman, because if anything hurt me, if anything against my desire and wishes, what I wish, quickly I will be getting angry, and the first to be against Allah Almighty and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and human being and people and whom they are around me, even they used to be so close friends, I will see them, they are devils and enemies to me." How? If a real mu'min, you think, "O Prophet Musa alayhi salam will be like this?" A real mu'min, when he pray, thoughts will come to him, or he will be focusing on Allah Almighty, on his Lord, on his God, focusing on his Prophet, focusing on what he is praising and glorifying Allah Almighty, in sujood, in ruku', in standing, in reading Fatiha, to be concentrating and focusing on whom he is between the hand of whom, instead to be focusing on what going on with his daily life, his business, his family, his wife, his children, his TVs, his movies, his movies which he is attending. They will come to him in the prayer, and instead to make sujood to Allah Almighty, the sujood will go to these statues whom he is thinking about them and coming to him as thoughts. How we sit in zikr, how we sit in Khatmul Khaja Khan, how we say we are good members in the kingdom of Allah Almighty, and our thoughts, our mind, our hearts, our feeling is with our egos, with our desires, with our satanic world. How we feel when we are going to be meeting Allah Almighty, and we will be seeing that we used to be under the powers of Almighty hand of Allah Almighty, under the powers of Almighty hand of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, under the powers of Awliyaullah and Sahaba and Ahlul Bayt, and powers of divinely heavenly stations. All we are under them, under their powers, looking at us, facing us, and we are running away like thieves from a one watching us, scared not to see us. Why? Because we want to follow our satanic word, our desires. We want to steal as much as we can from this life, to gain from it as much as we can, and then all at a sudden you leave everything, and the angel of death will come and take your soul, and at that moment Allah will take off all the veils from in between you, from your eyes, and they will be so sharpened, and your eyes will be open until you passed away, and someone will close them for you, and you will see at that time how you missed the way of Allah Almighty, of beloved Rasulullah, of awliya. You will be biting your fingers, you will be biting your hands, you will be so depressed that why I took this and that satanic devil words in me to be my friends, my negative powers, my non-believers' power in me, my desires to be my friends and to follow them. They make me to miss dhikrullah, they make me to miss worshipping Allah Almighty. They make me to miss and to forget Allah Almighty and Rasulullah, and only to be behind my satanic word, my desires, and neglecting Allah Almighty, putting Allah Almighty on my back and my face toward satanic word and devils and desires and egos. Then how you are going to meet Allah Almighty? And then Sayyidina Musa listening to his neighbor. Now the neighbor, he is as if a teacher to Sayyidina Musa, as if he is the one now advising Sayyidina Musa. And Sayyidina Musa was so surprised that such knowledge even not once he was thinking about it. He told him, as you like, I will ask Allah Almighty to send you an iman which make you never to be focusing except on the divine presence of Allah Almighty and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and heavenly stations. When Sayyidina Musa went to meet Allah, to talk to Allah Almighty on the mountain of Sinai, and when he finished what Allah Almighty wanted to tell him, to give message, and he asked permission from Allah Almighty to go back home. And then Allah Almighty, remembering, O Musa, is not your neighbor asking you to ask me for something? Yeah, please forgive me, O Allah Almighty, I forgive. Don't forgive next time. What he asked, and Allah knows, but we want Sayyidina Musa to talk. And he told them that my neighbor, he said he has no iman, no faith. Even he believe in you, he believe in me, he believe in Islam. He is a good believer, and he say he has no iman, because he will be hurting from even the tiniest thing or anything will hurt him and make him to be no more depending totally on Allah Almighty, but getting angry, upset, depressed, no more as if Allah is existing and Prophet existing and faith is existing. He wants so plenty of iman to send him. Allah Almighty told him, Ya Musa, the plenty of iman because Allah, His name, one of His name, Al-Mu'min, the plenty of Iman, plenty of faith, which I have too much for your neighbor. I am going to take one tiny drop from the ocean of Iman, of faith, and I will split it to be 1/7 of an unseen light of Iman. Even all my prophets and all whom I give them godly power, they spend their power to see this tiniest beam of Iman, they are not going to see it. So, as if a shadow of Iman. I am going to send for him, tell him this is enough for him. No need for plenty of Iman. This will be doing well with him. As you like, O Allah Almighty, my God. And Sayyidina Musa, he went and he found that his neighbor still standing on the door of his house waiting for Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam to return. And Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he when just returning, he saw his neighbor waiting for him, but he was so surprised seeing his neighbor looking at the skies, opening his eyes, opening his mouth, and leaving his hands and all his body as if they are not connected to the other. And he told him, my neighbor, but there was no one to answer. My neighbor, no one to answer. Then Sayyidina Musa shake him, and Sayyidina Musa was very powerful as a physical body, plus the spiritual body, but as a physical body, he shake him well, but no one to answer. Then he used the light of prophecy, of his spirituality, of the realities which Allah dressed him as light of prophecy in him, and he was using this power, godly power, and shaking him. Even no one was answering him until Allah Almighty talking to him in his place. Leave him, Musa. If you put him in a machine which will make his bones and meats to be all together mixed, he is now going to feel, but he is going to be always focusing on heavens, on skies, looking at my light, at my holy face, seeing nothing except his Lord Allah Almighty. Allah Almighty, by this shadow of a tiny unseen beam of light of Iman, make like this. How about to send an atom of Iman? How if you want to send a plenty of Iman, what will happen then? He told them, for this, Ya Musa, I kept Iman for my servants till day of judgment, and by this Iman, in day of judgment, they can see my face. Otherwise, in this life, difficult for them than to live or to enjoy their life with Iman in their heart. And from this story, you can balance to see how much you have Iman, how much you have faith, how much you are connected with Allah Almighty or not. And you will see that you are totally bankrupt, you are totally so rich with satanic word in you, with devils, with desires, with your ego, and you are totally bankrupt from spiritualities, from realities, from heavenly station, divine knowledge, from all means of godly good tidings and the blessing which Allah addressing to His prophets, to sealed of prophet, to awliya, to sealed of awliya, and to sultan of awliya. And the one who want to be in this way and to be dressed by all this huge mountain of faith, of Iman, he must be totally making himself to be bankrupt from all his desires and satanic word, not to follow his thoughts, his desires, his mind, not to follow his life, the materialistic life, but to smash himself, to be no more existing in this human body, but only to make the lights of Allah Almighty, which He is created from it, to be shining and sparkling, and all this physical body to be as a dust under His feet, no more existing. But the soul is taking over this body, and that he always under the powers of Allah Almighty and the hand of Allah Almighty, the hand of Rasulullah, the hand of Awliyaullah, and he is always under the hand which he make with the bay'ah, with the initiation, and to keep his oath and the promise, as he did it with love in the first moment, to be progressing and coming bigger and bigger and fruitful, so that Allah Almighty to make his heart, his spiritual heart, no more this physical heart, but this spiritual heart, wherein is the house of Allah Almighty, to be an ocean for faith, for Iman, to be an ocean where the throne of Allah Almighty, as Allah Almighty saying, my throne on water, an ocean, water of Iman, water of life, water of godly water, where the throne of Allah Almighty is sailing and floating over the divine, the ocean of uniqueness of Allah Almighty, over the divine, the ocean of oneness of Allah Almighty, the divine, the ocean of attributes, the divine, the ocean of names, the divine, the ocean of the greatest name, the divine, the ocean of the holy essence of Allah Almighty, where the throne of Allah Almighty is floating. There you can find Iman, there you can find faith, then you know whom you are from Allah Almighty. As Rasulullah said, the one who knows himself, whom he is from his Lord, then he will be dressed to be a godly one, a divinely one. If he say to something be, it will be. Man arifa nafsahu, the hadith of Rasul, talk of Rasulullah. Man arifa nafsahu, the one who knows himself, faqad arifa rabbah, then he knows his Lord, his God, Allah Almighty. Then he will be faqad ta'alla, then he will be godly one, divinely one, dressed by attributes from Allah Almighty, by greatest name of Allah Almighty, by names of Allah Almighty, and he will be then sitting on this throne, floating over the oceans of oneness of Allah Almighty. And he will be then ocean of Iman, of faith, ocean of spiritualities and realities and secrets, and ocean of love, because all this ocean of the absolute identity of Allah Almighty, the holy essence of Allah Almighty, the holy ocean of uniqueness of Allah Almighty, the holy ocean of oneness of Allah Almighty, the holy oceans of attributes of Allah Almighty, the holy ocean of names and the greatest name of Allah Almighty, the oceans of deeds of Allah Almighty, all they are floating in the ocean of love of Allah Almighty. The love is the will of Allah Almighty. When Allah Almighty love to be known, then the will of love appeared, and from it appear all creation to know Allah Almighty by Allah Almighty. And this ocean of love, and this ocean, and this will, is beloved sealed of Prophet Muhammadun Rasulullah from pre-eternal forever, and for this it is connected from pre-eternal without beginning to forever without ending, Muhammadun Rasulullah, with the name of Allah Almighty, with La ilaha illallah. And between La ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Rasulullah, this space, even so tiniest one, not even appearing, but they are not the connected with the H at the end of the Allah, still there is a space. This space, there is there the ocean of Iman, the ocean, lightning of the awliya, great awliya, sealed of awliya, sultan of awliya, the 9 awliya whom they are the link between all creation, accompanying all creation when they were descending from La ilaha illallah as manifestation and light to be loaded in the divinely godly word of oneness of Allah Almighty Muhammadun Rasulullah, to be accompanying them, training them, loading them in the divine ocean of Wahdaniyah of Allah Almighty Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah forgive us and bless us. إلى شرف النبي سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وصحبه حضرة أستاذنا وأستاذ أستاذ صديق من الله تعالى. الفاتحة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.